Hello, everyone. Welcome again. Welcome once again to another episode of Everything and Nothing. And this week, I'm really focusing and continuing the series of the myth of work life balance. And what I've been doing is for the past weeks, I've been talking about how, in my opinion, there is only life and work happens to be part of it. And that for many years, working with people as a coach, I discovered that one of the things that was creating a lot of pain and a lot of frustration was that desire to have a work life balance and how much they fragmented themselves trying to be one way at work, one way at home. When in reality, what we want is to create a balance in our life where we can be ourselves everywhere we go and realize that work happens to be part of our life, especially in the last years since the, you know, lockdowns happened, when everything became kind of mixed in one big bowl of adventure, let's call it that. And so I have identified a few factors that support my perspective of or this perspective, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has this perspective. There's many other people out there that potentially agree with what I'm saying. And what I have found support that perspective of a balanced life is one, recognizing that there is no work life balance. There, I said it. And especially if you are a professional, especially if you are a manager, actually, if you are anything in just the work environment, whether you're an intern, a co-op, as they're called in Canada, if you are a new hire, or you are a manager, an assistant, an executive, a board member, anything that you are, this applies to you. There is no work-life balance. There is no need for you to try to be a certain way at home and try to be a different way at work. And if that's the case, then there's an invitation for you to reflect on what is it that needs to change so that you can have that life balanced. Okay. The other thing that I talked about was communication and boundaries, as well as truth, and how having those factors or those ingredients really tuned in and clear within yourself, you are able to then have that balance that we're looking for, the balance that only we can bring to ourselves, that we bring and that we carry throughout our life, no matter where we are or what we're doing. Part three of this series was talking about trust and psychological safety. And that was an example of how what I'm trying to show you is how there are different areas that support how it doesn't make sense to try to have two different lives or two different personalities. It just doesn't make sense. And I use the example on episode 3, if you want to go look at it or listen to it, if, is psychological safety. The example I use just briefly is if you are in a relationship at work, meaning your boss or your team lead or even just your colleagues in the same level are being abusive to you, disrespectful to you, that does not create a psychological safety. That means that when you go home, even though your spouse, your family, your children, your roommates are supportive of you, you still don't have that psychological safety in that place. Therefore, your life is out of balance. Same thing goes the opposite way. If you at home, you are in an abusive relationship, whether it's psychological, emotional, physical, financial, any kind of those um, types of abuse, but at home you have, and at home you have this type of abuse, and at work you have a supportive environment and you have a supportive manager, a supportive colleague, supportive clients, everything's amazing. It just makes it that much more painful to even want to leave an unhealthy relationship, and it makes it much more painful for you to actually live life. So there again is an example of how your life is out of balance. So the factors that I'm going to talk about today on this episode is self-awareness, responsibility, and emotional maturity. And the importance of having these three things in alignment and how they can help you have that balance that you crave, and how, if if they are in alignment at home, but they're not in alignment at work, then you are again out of balance. And this is not a life work balance. This is a life in general balance. And it's important that I share. Um, in my opinion, there I have been around and I have heard and I have seen and I have read a lot about departments and organizations that claim to be very supportive of their employees, their well-being, and they do. Sadly, it's I'm just gonna say it. It's sad, but it's true. They do these webinars and they do these meetings and they do these town halls and they do these recordings and certifications about the importance of your well-being, the importance of you being okay. But what I noticed a lot of the time is what was happening is these people were just doing the bare minimum to take care of themselves so that they're legally not responsible for anything that might happen to an employee. And I feel that is really sad. It's sad and it's horrible, actually, because these are supposed to be the people that are meant to be tending to the employees, that are supposed to be supporting the well being of the clients, when in reality, what they're mainly looking out for is the well being of the company, the well being of their own job. And it's really painful to watch because I'm not saying all organizations do this. Let's clarify that. I'm saying I have seen this happen many times. I have worked with clients who come to me because they are highly stressed, they are highly burned out, and they don't have the support that they need in their organization. And they can't say anything about it because the organization is doing everything that they need to do to protect themselves, to where they say, well, it must be your stuff at home or your personal life. It can't be work because we're doing everything we can. So when I think about those examples, it's heartbreaking, really. It's one of the reasons why I do the work that I do and why I have this space where I can express myself and I can share these stories. For one, so that if you're listening and you're in a situation like that, please know that it's not you. Most likely it's the environment that you're in. It's the people that you're working with. And a reminder that you're not alone, because a lot of the times when we are in situations that are unhealthy, we keep thinking it must be us. We then feel ashamed because we feel out of balance, because we feel, you know, like we're crying too much, like we're expressing too much, and suddenly we're not supposed to be doing that. But it's not you. It's it's the environment, it's the other people. So that takes care of reflecting on your self-awareness. Have that awareness within yourself. What is really from you and what is really from the other people? When I was younger, in my younger years, I worked in an organization that it was supposed to be all about well-being, healthy, and happiness in the workplace. And it was really unfortunate that what I was seeing was not really reflecting what the mission and the vision of the organization, what they were saying. Really, I've had a an experience where I was working in an office where the owner of the company was verbally abusive to just about everyone. And she wasn't abusive to me for the longest time, but she was abusive to everybody. The younger associates, she would be really rude to them. She would call them names. She would use manipulation to get them to stay working later, even though she wasn't working them overtime. She would humiliate them in front of clients. And again, I was younger at the time. So the way I saw it was, hey, she's not doing that to me, and I wouldn't let her do that to me. And to a certain degree, that's true. I kept noticing how my colleagues would just be stressed, would be overwhelmed, they would cry. They felt they felt stuck. They had a job that they liked to do. They just so happens that the person in there was not very respectful, healthy. And that went on for a few years. And any time that the owner would come to me and try to be aggressive, I would put my foot down and say, no, that's not true. Or if she would try to manipulate me into working late, I would tell her, no, my contract says to work from here to here. And last week I already stayed extra hours. I'm not doing it again this week. And I would just tell her no. I would set boundaries, which we talked about. I would speak my truth, which I talked about. But I allowed that behavior to happen to my colleagues, even though there was nothing really I could do. By staying there, I allowed it to continue. And of course, it wasn't too long that she got abusive with me. And it was the type of comment that I would never expect an employee or a boss, a manager, or just a colleague to say. She was really angry about something. I can't remember, to be honest, what she was angry about. But she made this. I was smiling. I was smiling because I was trying to stay balanced. I was trying to stay in a grounded place of, okay, well, this is going nowhere. I don't agree with what she's saying. And she just kept going and going, this has to be done like this and this has to be like that. And I was thinking it did get done like that. I was just listening and I had a smile on my face, which it irritated her because her next comment was, you need to clean that smirk off your face. And I remember saying to her, there was another colleague with me, there were two of us there. And I said to her, what smirk? And she said, well, I can see you're smirking over there. And I said, I'm not, I'm just smiling. I'm just listening. And she's like, well, you need to wipe that off your face or else. And then I really laughed and I said, or else what? And I'll never forget. She said, or else I'll walk over there and slap it off your face. And I remember in that moment, I was like, what? Who says that to their employee? I'm not a child. I'm not your child. Like, what the heck? So, remember I told you, oh, you may not. Well, if you listen to the last episode, I talked about, no, it wasn't in the episode. In one of my videos, in one of my live videos, and you can see it on YouTube, I talk about finding our voice and how when I was in my 20s, my voice was pretty punchy, because after I got divorced, after I survived domestic violence, I felt a little like, hey, I can take on anybody. I got this. And so I am a third degree black belt. I'm a certified um, instructor. So when this woman said that to me, when she literally said, "Or else I'm gonna wipe it, I'm gonna slap it off your face," I really laughed, and I said, "You're gonna what?" And she said, "Oh, you heard me right. I'll come over there and slap you." And I said, "Well, I would love for you to do that." And I remember she said, "Oh, really? Why?" And I said, "Well, so I can slap you right back as self-defense. If you were to lay your hand on me, I will defend myself." Of course, she got upset even more and she was like, and then she left. But I'll never forget that moment. For me, that was right there. I went from self awareness, which is what I'm talking about today, having that self awareness of, hey, no, you're not going to talk to me like that, to responsibility. It was my responsibility to do something about that. I can stand up for myself. I did stood up for myself. I did say to her, what are you talking about? Like, no, you're not going to come over here and slap me. What's wrong with you? And at that moment, I was grateful, and I am still grateful that at that moment I had the emotional maturity, which is the third thing I wanted to talk about in this episode, to walk away. I had a conversation with her, and I had a conversation with the other managers in the organization, and I told them I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the clients that I work with. I enjoy everything that we're doing here. I do not enjoy the environment. I will not stay in a place where that's how you speak to your employees. And definitely, I will not stay when that's how you speak to me. So I had the emotional maturity to not get aggressive, you know, to listen, to observe, and to make a decision that was good for me, a decision that brought me more balance into my life. Okay. Because, yeah, once I did that, um, I went out, I left the organization, and I started freelancing. And then it was, working with people in my own terms, in my own way, choosing who I work with and how I work with them, setting clear boundaries of how we communicate with one another. And believe me, it's tricky. I'm not saying it got better everywhere. No, there are still times right now where I meet clients that some of them are a little pushy, some of them are a little manipulative, and I have to have that self-awareness. I have to have that awareness of when is it leaning a little too much to an exaggeration or a little too much to a side that it's not balanced anymore. And then I have the responsibility to do something about it and do it in an emotional, mature way, not in a way of, well, I'm going to hide, I'm not going to say anything because I want this to be good or I want everyone to like me. Or the other extreme of I'm going to start a fight with everybody from a place of speaking my truth and saying, hey, this isn't working anymore. Hey, we need to clear this. Hey, and then knowing when to walk away. That's always the key. So work-life balance is such an important myth to throw out because the more, in my opinion, the more people walk around believing or listening to their people in the organizations that are, again, if you're listening to this and you're getting offended, I'm wondering why. Because if you are supportive of your employees, if you are supportive of your people, if you truly, truly are creating an environment where the people are feeling safe, the people are feeling supported, the people are feeling balanced, then there's no need for you to feel uncomfortable or weird or upset about what I'm saying. Really. This is more for the people, and I have seen it. I'm telling you, I have lived it and I have seen it. The people that go around saying, yes, we care about you. Yes, your health matters, but in reality, it doesn't. They make it complicated. They make it challenging. You know, for a while, you've seen me here in my office, in my space. I have all my animals. I have my dogs, and I have a little Chihuahua that I have with me. And my little Chihuahua is, well, all my dogs are really my emotional support. It's how I am well at home, living alone in a big house in a country where I have no immediate family. I'm pretty much here on my own by choice. I'm not, don't need to feel sorry for me. It's all by choice. I'm just saying it makes it easier because I have all of these loving animals with me. You know, and the Chihuahua became one of my most amazing emotional support little ones. You know, he was with me. I take him with me pretty much everywhere I go. When I travel abroad, he goes with me. I make sure that he has everything he needs to go along with me. Um, yeah, the medium-sized dog, I would take him too, but I have to keep him at home because I have the big dog that needs a little bit of company. So the two of them kind of stay in touch and keep each other company when I'm away because we're always together. We're a pack. But the little one, he pretty much is my companion. He goes wherever I go, and he makes it nicer. He makes it easier for me when I'm traveling. Whatever's happening, he's amazing at supporting me and a great reminder of staying balanced. So I know that there's a lot of people that have emotional support animals and that have, you know, just service dogs, service animals that they have with them, and I honor that. I think it's beautiful when we can be supportive of people that need that kind of support around. People may not understand it, people may not agree with it, people may have their own opinions, but point of the matter is if someone feels that much connection to their service animal or their emotional support animal, why not support that? You know, I understand there's some situations where the animal got aggressive, etc., but that doesn't describe everyone. Just like I'm telling you right now, I don't believe every organization has people like the ones I just described. I'm just saying there are organizations out there that are like that. Just like there are organizations out there that will make it really difficult for employees to bring their emotional support animals to work. And they'll find every possible idea, every possible reason to keep that from happening. And yet they go around talking about, oh, we truly support your wellness. Oh, we really support breathwork. Here's a paper that teaches you how to breathe. For me, in my opinion, if you really want to support, then do something about it. If an employee is telling you, hey, this is where my life is at, this is my emotional support dog or my service dog, you listen and you figure out a way to support them, not make it harder for them to prove that they really need that. I mean, for one, it's some countries it is against the law to even ask your employee to prove that they need that. But there are organizations that will do that. And it's not cool. I'm just saying. So having that self-awareness is important. And throwing away that myth, that lie of work-life balance is really important. How about supporting one another to have a balanced life in general, to feel that balance within ourselves? How about taking on the responsibility as an organization or as a company, as an HR department, as a people and talent department? How about taking on the responsibility to really, really support the people? How about bringing in moments where you do breathwork sessions within your team? You know, I had a client that I worked with for some time, and the program that I designed for her was because everybody, not everybody, that's an exaggeration, about 80% of the team, every Monday, and that's not an exaggeration, every Monday, about 80% of the team would come in stressed because it's Monday and it feels heavy and it's like, ugh. So the program that I designed for them, we used to do team coaching once a quarter. It started once a month and then we moved it to once a quarter. And when we would do the team coaching quarterly, we would meet in person or we would meet virtually and we would talk about what are the challenges that the team are facing and how can we move through them. But one thing that we identified was that Mondays was really stressful for a lot of them. So we implemented the Monday breathworks. So Mondays at, I believe it was 8:30. Yeah, it was 8:30 in the morning. I would open a Zoom call and I would have my setting. There's music that I use for breathwork and people could jump in on that. And it would only be available for, I was open for 20 minutes, but it was only happening for 15 minutes. So I would open it, at 8:25. And the whole point of it was people could jump in and I would just be guiding them through a breathwork session to help regulate that nervous system, to help them prepare for that week. And that's literally all we did. And yes, as small as that sounds, that was big. That did something for the people, that helped them ground, that helped them have that balance within themselves so that they could have a good day at work, a good week at work, and they could enjoy their day at home. They can enjoy their days with their friends, with their spouses, with their loved ones. Every week we did that, and we did that for about 6 months. And that's something that I offered to executives too. There were executives that we really didn't want to talk. There was no need for talking. They just needed to breathe and they needed to have a space where they could just jump in and have someone guide them through that. That for me is an example of really caring for the well-being of the people in a team or in an organization. Like, seriously. So when it comes to this balance, I am inviting you and I am very focused on wanting to open the door to explore what would it be like if you start looking at your life as the place that you want balance in, that you start looking at your life as this beautiful experience, that you want to identify areas in which you show up. And with enough awareness, you know who you are, you know what you like, you know what your voice is, you know what inspires you, you know what motivates you, you know what matters to you. And once you have that clarity of your core values, your inspirations, your motivations, your identity, who you are, then you have that balance. And then you can go to all these other areas in your life in a balanced way. And things just work. It's that simple. As always, is it easy? No, but it's simple. But it's actually not hard. The thing is, it requires commitment, it requires support. And a lot of people lack those two things because they're committed to other things and because they don't want to ask for help. So there you have it. That was a good one. What I mean by that is I feel good. I feel good sharing what I shared. I feel good even sharing that story that happened. As much as it wasn't that pleasant, it's true. It did happen. I was there. Some people may be like, what? No way. Oh, yes. And I know, sadly enough, there are a few listeners right now that are going, oh, yeah, I believe you, girl. That happened to me too. So just being mindful of that and just pay attention, have that self-awareness, take responsibility for what you're going to do next and do it in an emotional mature way. And the way to find that emotional maturity again is through balance. Oh man, I cannot tell you enough how important that balance is. And so as I'm closing this episode, because remember there's still another couple of parts in this series, but as I'm closing this episode, I want to invite you to check out my website. I do 20-minute breathwork basics every other month or quarterly. I do it at different time zones so that different people, if you live in Asia, which I just got my little recap of how the podcast did this year, which I think is pretty cool. And it was telling me that, some of my listeners are in India and some of my listeners, let me see, where was it? Some of my listeners are in India, in Sweden. I know. I was like, wow. Some of my listeners are in Mexico, and some of them are in, here we go. The Philippines, the US, Canada, Germany, Australia, Vietnam, UK, France, Argentina, Denmark, Japan, Thailand, Mauritius, Sweden, Mexico, South Africa, Macedonia, Italy, Bulgaria, Spain, Cyprus, India, Romania, Kenya, Hong Kong, and Russia. Yay! So all of you that are listening, I decided to start putting the programs, the online programs, the breathwork basics. It's an introduction. It's free master classes that I'm going to offering them in different time zones so that if you're listening and you want to join me in person, well, virtually, but live, you're more than welcome to do so. And together we can find different ways to bring that balance back into our life. Because if I'm in balance and you're in balance and your neighbor's in balance and your colleague is in balance, oh, life would just feel that much nicer, that much yummier. Okay, that's all I have for today. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, your day, your year, whenever you're listening. Leave a comment, send me a message. Thanks to those of you that send me messages. Yes, I see you, I read you, and you know that I reply to you. And feel free to share. Feel free to share the episode with whoever you think might find it useful. And